Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving straight into something absolutely profound. We're going to unpack the ancient tantric mechanics of breath and the cosmic sound, which is known as Shabda Brahma. And to do this, we're looking directly at a foundational text of Kashmir Shaivism, the Vigyan Bhairav. So if you're a focused learner looking to understand exactly how ancient spiritual practitioners mapped human consciousness using literally nothing but their own breath and internal resonance, well, you're in exactly the right place. Let's get started.
Okay, here's our roadmap for today. We'll be covering the divine dialogue, the mechanics of prana apana, Karaka 38, the unbeaten sound, Karaka 39, Om and the void, and finally, the essence of Shabda Brahma.
Section 1. The Divine Dialogue, Setting the Cosmic Premise.
So before we can actually explore the specific techniques of breath and sound, we really need to understand how the Vigyan Bhairav is structured. You see, this isn't just a dry list of instructions. It's framed entirely as a cosmic conversation. If we look right here at page 2 of the text, we see the authentic Sanskrit origin of this knowledge. The Vigyan Bhairav is structured not as rigid dogmatic rules, but as an intimate, inquisitive Q&A session between two divine principles, Shiva and Shakti. In this framework, Shiva represents pure, unmoving consciousness, while Shakti represents the dynamic, creative energy of the entire universe. Essentially, Shakti is asking Shiva how to truly understand his highest absolute reality. And Shiva's response? It's this text, 112 practical methods, or dharanas, to experience that exact reality. It's just a beautiful way to frame learning, isn't it? Energy seeking to understand consciousness.
Section 2. Mechanics of Prana Apana, the Physical Gateway.
To experience higher consciousness, the text tells us we have to first master our physical reality, because before we can hear the subtle, cosmic sounds of the universe, we absolutely must master the physical gateway of our own bodies. And this brings us to the mechanics of the breath. Let's examine the fundamental biological and spiritual forces at play here. According to page 15 of our source text, the Vigyan Bhairav meticulously outlines the origin and resting places of our vital life forces, known as vayus. Now, these aren't just the oxygen we breathe. They are the energetic currents driving life itself. Understanding these currents is absolutely essential for chakra Bhedan, or the piercing of the energy centers. The text specifically focuses on the dynamic relationship between two primary forces, prana and apana.
The text actually describes a singular, continuous breath loop. Step 1 begins with the origin of the breath at the heart center. Then, in step 2, this vital energy moves outward and upward. This is your pranavayu. It travels to a specific external point called the Dvadasanta, which is a space roughly 12 finger breaths away from the nose. Step 3 is this microscopic, almost imperceptible moment of stillness where the breath rests at this external boundary. And finally, step 4 is the inward return. The energy flows back from the Dvadasanta into the heart. This returning flow is the Apanavayu. So what we're looking at is a continuous cycle of generation and dissolution happening within us every few seconds.
And this brilliantly illustrates the perpetual dualistic rhythm of our existence. On one hand, we're constantly expanding outward with the pranavayu, and on the other, we're constantly grounding and pulling inward with the apanavayu. By deeply observing this incredibly subtle mechanism, exactly where the inward and outward breaths originate and where they dissolve, the practitioner anchors their wandering mind. Only once this physical oscillation is deeply understood and the mind is completely stabilized can we move on to the more subtle practices of sound.
Section 3. Karika 38, the Unbeaten Sound, Scene 2.
All right, so once the breath is anchored, our attention shifts inward. We're going to ascend from the physical mechanics of breathing into the highly subtle internal realm of auditory focus. If you direct your attention to page 29 of the text, we find the documentary evidence for the 15th dharana, designated as Karaka 38. This is a crucial turning point in the Vigyan Bhairav. Having established a quiet mind through breath awareness, the text now introduces the concept of tuning into a continuous inner river of sound. Let's break down exactly what this ancient verse is actually telling us to do.
The Sanskrit begins, Anahate patra karnabhya bhagna shabde saridrute. The simple English translation of this shloka is, by immersing the mind in the continuous, unbeaten sound that flows like a rapid river, one attains the state of Shabda Brahma, or the cosmic sound. I want you to try and imagine this right now. If you've ever stood near a rushing waterfall, or, say, listened to the low, continuous hum of a massive electrical grid, you know how that sound can entirely encompass your senses. Well, the text is asking the practitioner to locate a sound exactly like that, a rushing, unbroken vibration, but entirely inside their own mind and body.
This brings up a vital definition. The text calls this sound anahata nada. Literally translated, this means the unbeaten sound. Think about it for a second. Every physical sound we hear in everyday life is created by percussion, right? By two objects striking or rubbing together, vocal cords vibrating, hands clapping, a hammer hitting a nail. The anahata nada is a sound that exists inherently, without two things striking together. It's the underlying ambient vibration of life itself, which the practitioner only begins to perceive when those gross physical senses are finally quieted down.
Let's systematically break down the multi-layered depth of Karika 38 through this table. Literally, it means focusing on a sound without a strike. Philosophically, it suggests that underneath all matter and thought is a continuous universal vibration. From a tantric perspective, listening to this sound isn't just about relaxation. It's an active methodology for merging your individual, localized consciousness with vast universal energy. But practically speaking, for anyone trying this today, this inner sound acts as the ultimate focal point. By giving your brain this unbroken river of sound to listen to, you effectively override and completely quiet all the other fluctuating, stressful thoughts of the mind. It is a brilliant, highly practical tool for profound mindfulness.
Section 4. Karika 39. Om in the Void. Scene 3.
But what happens when you follow that sound to its absolute end? On page 32, the text introduces the 16th dharana. If Karika 38 was about listening to the ambient sound of the universe, Karika 39 is about utilizing a specific generated sound, the most famous of all mantras actually, to intentionally bridge the gap from existence into absolute nothingness.
The verse begins with the word pranav, which refers to the mantra Om. The simple English meaning derived from this shloka is this. By contemplating on the letters of Om and experiencing the void at the end of its recitation, the seeker's mind dissolves into the ultimate void, known as shunyata. So the focus here isn't just the chanting itself. The real magic happens in the journey from the physical syllables of the chant fading out into the profound silence that immediately follows it.
Now, we need to define shunyata carefully because, let's be honest, the void sounds a bit intimidating. In this context, shunyata is absolutely not a negative, depressing state of nothingness. It's a state of absolute, vibrant presence that is completely devoid of mental fluctuations. To put that into perspective, think of modern high-end noise-canceling headphones. When you turn them on, the sudden absence of background noise doesn't feel like nothing. It actually feels like a very powerful, almost tangible presence of quiet. Shunyata is the spiritual equivalent of that profound, peaceful emptiness.
Let's move to and see how this builds, because here we can see a really clear contrast. The pranava, or Om, is a tangible, gross vibration. You actively create it. It's used as a vehicle. On the other side, we have the void, shunyata. This is the ultimate destination. It is absolute silence and formless consciousness. You're using the active effort of chanting the mantra to carry your awareness right to the edge, and then you passively surrender to the silence that eventually consumes the sound.
Breaking down Karika 39 across these different perspectives really illuminates its genius. Literally, the practice is just focusing on the lingering resonance after you say Om. Philosophically, it represents the grand transition from form to the formless. From a tantric perspective, as the sound dissolves, the practitioner's ego and individual identity are meant to dissolve right along with it into the supreme state. And practically, it teaches the modern, overstimulated brain how to find comfort and profound rest in absolute silence. The sound of Om acts merely as a rocket booster. It propels your focus upward, but it must eventually fall away once your mind reaches the orbit of the void.
Section 5. Essence of Shabd Brahma.
We've covered the dialogue, the breath, the continuous inner sound, and the void. So the crucial point is synthesizing this systematic path, where we see it's highly engineered. First, the mechanical flow of prana and apana anchors the physical body and stabilizes the heart-mind connection. Once stable, the practitioner tunes into the anahata, the underlying unbeaten sound of existence. Then, using the pranava, Om, the ego basically rides that sound straight into shunyata, the void. The ultimate goal across all of these practices, from the physical breath to the psychological dissolution, is dissolving one's individual awareness entirely into Shabda Brahma, the fundamental, conscious vibration of the universe.
Which leaves us with a rather profound mystery to ponder. These ancient texts suggest that underneath all the noise of our daily lives, there is a fundamental rhythm, a cosmic sound just waiting to be perceived. So, if the universe is a constant vibration, what happens to you when you finally stop, anchor your breath, and listen to the profound silence beneath it all? I hope this detailed breakdown of the Vigyan Bhairav has sparked your curiosity to explore that inner quiet. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring.